This lesson is part of a series that goes with the TABE Mastery Level E reading book. We're in Lesson 1 of Unit 2, entitled Main Ideas and Details. The goal of this unit is to pull out the main idea of a passage, show how it is supported by the key and minor details, and explain the relationships among the key and minor details. These are some of the skills you'll have to demonstrate in the language arts section of the GED. To do this, we'll be using reading passages related to an important event in U.S. history, the Pearl Harbor attack, which provoked our involvement in World War II. We'll therefore be addressing both language arts and social studies standards. Today, we're focusing just on the key details. The objectives of today's lesson are to ask and answer WH questions about a text, restate the key details in your own words, explain how the key details contribute to the overall picture of the text, use key details to make predictions about the text, and describe the initial setting of the Pearl Harbor attack, meaning the location, the time, and the general mood. The ADE standards that this lesson will address are written here. I'm not going to take the time to read them out to you, but please feel free to hit pause on your viewer to read them for yourself.
So the first question is, what are key details? Some smart aleck just a little while ago said key details are things like, is it gray or is it iron or steel? And no, I don't mean that. What are some key details? What does that mean to you?
Well, I'd say it's little things that are important.
Okay, yes, they are little things that are important. Anything else you want to add?
It's like evidence that you see in there about, what the character's like, what's happening, what's the motivation, that kind of thing.
So all of that is good. So it's evidence, it's details that are important. It is facts that answer important questions. We usually refer to these as WH questions because all of these questions start with WH except for, well, one of them. They're going to answer big questions: who, what, where, why, when, how. What can be a lot of things. What kind of apple are we talking about? Or what happened? As you are reading, you should be thinking about these 6 questions and looking for answers to these questions in this passage. Let's try an example. So let's look at the passage below and talk about what questions does this passage answer. So the title of the passage is December Day in Hawaii. The sun rises over the calm and quiet United States Naval Base at Pearl Harbor on the island of Oahu, Hawaii. It is Sunday, and many of the military men and women are on leave for the weekend. Most offices and shops are closed. Still, the base hums as the military personnel stationed there go about their daily routines, whether servicing the vessels and planes that are critical to U.S. military strength, or simply enjoying some much well-deserved leisure. So let's think about the who, what, where, why, when, how type questions. Which of those questions can you see answered in this paragraph?
Well, definitely the where.
The where.
Oahu, Hawaii, Naval Base, Pearl Harbor.
Where? Okay, Oahu, Hawaii. More specifically, there's a naval base there. So that's where.
When? This is at dawn.
Oh, okay, great. The sun rises. Does it say dawn somewhere?
No, but sunrises.
Okay, so the sun rises, so that's definitely dawn. Do we have any more information about when?
Sunday.
Sunday. It is Sunday. That ends up being a very important detail to what this passage is going to be talking about. Any other questions that you can answer?
The who?
Who?
Men and women.
Who? Okay, good. Men and women. Who? Military men and women. Good.
Well, I mean, it says military personnel, but that's a synonym for military men and women.
Yes. And one of the things I'm just going to point out as an aside, you notice how military personnel is in much darker text than the rest of the text. A lot of times when you are reading an information text like this, If they think they are introducing something that you may not be familiar with, a new term, they will often put it in bold to draw your attention to it. Or if they just think it's a really, really important term that you need to remember, they will very often put it in bold. So here, they're probably thinking, well, maybe you don't quite know what military personnel are, but it's the military men and women. Good.
I have a question on the when part. I mean, obviously dawn, Sunday, also December, but I notice it raises a question for me because any number 1 through 31 could be a December day, so it doesn't answer that question.
Right, it does not answer specifically when in December. We just sort of know the general time of year. What might people be thinking about, though, in December? Christmas, the holidays. Hanukkah, yeah, important holidays that are coming up. You're thinking festivities, right? Now, there are more details here. If we look at only this passage, there's a limit to what the passage says. Some of these details may be able to connect with information that you already know. You might be able to take a guess about what this is going to talk about. To me, a key word is Pearl Harbor. To people in our day, Pearl Harbor means only one thing. What does that take you back to? You may be familiar with what happened to Pearl Harbor, or you might not. Does anybody know what is significant or what is really meaningful about Pearl Harbor?
Wasn't that the name of a movie from like 30, 40 years ago?
30, 40, I'm not that old. I think there was a movie, I know there was one that came out, what, 15, 20 years ago with Ben Affleck.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I never saw it. I was told not to waste my money. But a lot of people did see it. I think it was like a Michael Bay movie, so if you like action and that kind of stuff, if you like Ben Affleck. Did anybody see that movie?
Sure.
Okay, you saw it.
I saw it in the theater.
You saw it in the theater. What was it about?
It was about, like you said, there was Ben Affleck, and there was another guy, and there was some girl, and it was a love triangle, and that's pretty much what it was about.
That was why I was told not to see the movie, is because, well, that could have happened in any kind of story. Did anything else happen outside of that love triangle? Because this is a Michael Bay thing. There had to have been explosions, right?
Yeah. There were explosions, but there were like no Transformer robots, so it's kind of confusing.
What were the explosions connected with?
Like airplanes and boats.
Airplanes and boats, okay. So this is actually a real historical event. This passage here does not tell you that, but it happened in the year 1941. So here I'm actually trying to give you a twofer. We're talking about reading. I'm trying to help boost your reading skills, but I am also trying to increase your history knowledge, which will help you with the social studies test. So we don't have to keep everything in nice, neat little boxes.
So the movie came out in 1941. It doesn't seem that old.
The movie came out, I don't know what year, a few years ago, and it was about this event in 1941.
Is this event by any chance World War II?
Yes! This is the start of World War II. Think back to anything you might know about World War II. Any images coming up here? If you think about World War II, you might think Germany, you might think Japan. This was a war that was fought over the entire world, and the two big places that we were fighting against were Germany and Japan.
Oh, I remember. There were Japanese people in the movie.
Yes.
But there weren't any Germans. Were they maybe in World War I?
They were in World War I, but they were also in World War II.
Oh.
But we were fighting this war on two different main parts of the world. So we are going to be focusing on the Japanese section of it. And this is the event that brought us into World War II. Up to this point, we had not been involved in the war, or we were trying to not be involved in the war. It was an event that was far away from us, and we had all these economic problems going on. We wanted to stay away from it. Okay, I don't want to go too much down a rabbit hole about all of World War II because I'm too easily distracted and I will do that. But when you are reading, if what you're reading triggers some memory of something outside, something that you already know, think about that because there may be clues there that will help you understand the text that you are reading. As far as this particular passage, we got the big things. When, sometime in December, and it's on a Sunday. Where is it? It's in Hawaii, and I think I even managed to get a little tiny picture of Hawaii.
Wow.
So we have a picture of Hawaii. That's the place that we are talking about. So this just gives you a little bit of context. There was one more question we could have answered. What are they doing? So we have these people, the military personnel. What are they doing right now?
Just seems like they're lounging.
Okay.
Some of them are lounging, but some of them seem to have to work on Sunday morning even.
Okay. Where do you get that from in the text?
Well, the base hums. I'm thinking humming is like a working, things are happening.
Okay.
Daily routines.
Okay. Daily routines. So whatever that is.
Right. Servicing the planes and vessels.
Okay, that's definitely work. Unless you're a hobbyist, but yeah, that's definitely work. Now you said something about relaxing, or?
He said something about relaxing.
Yeah, because it said much deserved leisure.
Leisure.
So that's relaxing.
That's relaxing. Okay, so enjoying much deserved leisure. And if you don't know what leisure is, well, it's something that you enjoy. So it's probably not work. So that gives us an idea what happened. Let's look at another paragraph. One of the things to keep in mind when you're reading and looking at the details, they should be working together. They should be connected. It's not just a whole bunch of random things. One detail very often leads into the next detail. So let me give you an example. The U.S. military is growing in strength, developing the means and training to protect and defend the nation it serves. Knowing that wars are being waged brutally in Europe and the Pacific, U.S. armed forces are prepared despite the nation's desire to stay isolated from the wars that seemingly have little to do with its concerns. The military is ready to deploy if it needs to, but government leaders are clear. This is not America's war. All right, I just read a mouthful, and I will tell you a problem that I have when I read is I start reading the words and I tune out to what it is I'm reading. I did that just now. So if you find yourself doing that, you are in very good company. So a lot of times you will have to go back and reread things. It's okay if you tune it out. Come back and try again. It does help to have questions as you are reading. So let's start with the first question. What is happening with the U.S. military? Well, let's look for U.S. military. Okay, we found it right here. The U.S. military is growing in strength. And we can go on a little bit, but that's the first thing. So the U.S. military is growing in strength. What does that mean? We're trying to make the U.S. military stronger. Okay, so they're growing in strength, and then if you want to go a little farther, you can say, well, they're developing the means and training to protect and defend the nation it serves. What does it mean? Well, let's look for some keywords. Protect and defend, that you probably do know. Means, that may not be something you see in your vocabulary a lot, but they're developing something to protect and defend the nation it serves. Yes, ma'am?
And the military is supposed to protect and defend us.
Yes, yes.
Connection.
So what this is saying is they are growing, they are getting bigger, they are trying to get better with better training and better ability. They're trying to be able to protect and defend the nation it serves. What nation?
Hawaii.
Hawaii is part of the U.S. So yeah, so it is trying to defend better the United States. So then there's the next question. Why are they doing this? Why is the military growing? So we first have what is happening. Why is it happening? Why is the military growing?
See, I read that whole thing, or I followed you when you read it, and I'm confused on that because this is not America's war. So I don't think they have anything to protect or defend us from, because it just said it's not America's war.
You're right. There is a little bit more to it, though. But there were a lot of people, I mean, this was the common theme back then. This is not our war. Why do we have to build up the military? Well, here's the thing. Wars are being waged brutally in Europe and the Pacific.
I mean, I don't understand that. Because, okay, so like I work at Taco Bell, and I get wages, so I know what wages are, but it doesn't make sense. Wars are what? Wars are getting paid? It doesn't, I mean, what is that?
You bring up a really good point. So you see a word and it just does not make sense at all. Red flag there. Let's get rid of this word. I don't like this word at all. Knowing that wars are being something brutally, could you insert a different word, totally different word that would make sense to you?
Knowing wars are fighting in Europe and the Pacific?
Nice.
Okay. Really brutal wars. You know, what are brutal wars? These are not nice, friendly tennis matches. These are brutal. So these wars are going on. Okay, now this brings back to your point originally, but it's not America's war. Very good point, and people here were arguing about that. But think about it this way. If, let's say, your neighborhood is right between two different gang territories, and these two gangs are constantly fighting each other, and you're right between them, are you just going to sit there and pretend like nothing is going on?
Gotcha.
So you may not want to get involved. In fact, it would probably be very, very smart not to get involved, but you do want to have some sort of protection. You want to be ready in case that gang war somehow gets turned towards you. You want to be prepared, at least have an escape plan. So we're growing in strength. Why? Because the whole world is at war and we're just a little nervous. We want to have some sort of preparation just in case the worst happens. Now, as you pointed out, this is not America's war. We want to stay out of the war. Why do we want to stay out of the war? So let's look at the rest of the details. So here we go to this point you notice. Despite the nation's desire to stay isolated from the wars. First question, I would not expect you to know isolate.
Well, I know that because my cousin was in isolation at the hospital for a while.
Okay, what happened? What did that mean when he was in isolation? Did everybody come and visit him and bring him treats?
No, nobody could visit him.
Okay, so isolated, you're being kept apart. So you want to be isolated from the wars. What's that mean? You want nothing to do with them, right? Okay, so we're being prepared despite our desire to stay away from the wars. Okay, here's the key. They seemingly have little to do with its concerns. Whose concerns? The U.S.'s concerns. A lot of times you read a long sentence like this, you're going to say, what? Wait, what? Whose concerns? You may have to read a sentence like this several times until you really understand, well, whose concerns? Eventually you're going to work back to the U.S.'s concerns. What does this mean? These wars are happening far away. They've got nothing to do with us. We really don't want to get involved. A little background information here. A little over 20 years before, there had been another big war going on throughout the whole world. It had nothing to do with the U.S. The U.S. got sucked in anyway. They lost a lot of people, and it was expensive. And most people agreed by then it was kind of a stupid war. It was nothing more than a bar fight. And the U.S. felt like we got drawn into this stupid bar fight, and we just wanted to sit in the corner and drink beer. I mean, it had nothing to do with us. We are not going to fall for that stupid thing again. These guys are having another bar fight. We want to stay out of it. Okay. So when you sum up this paragraph, there's a mess going on, lots of wars. We really want nothing to do with it, but maybe we should be prepared because we could get pulled in. Right? There is something else sometimes.
That's from the movie. I remember that from the movie. Yeah.
Okay.
Bunch of boats.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is to give you a little bit more context. So we've got Pearl Harbor. This is the naval base in Hawaii. It doesn't look very exciting here. You're not really seeing that beautiful beach and the palm trees and all that. I can see why they put the boats here because it doesn't look like a place where I'd want to go and, have a picnic or go surfing. It's, we don't care about that area at all. But you notice these are all the big Navy boats. And anybody who's in the Navy is going to want to slap me for calling them boats. I'm told that it's a capital offense to call them boats. They are ships. So apologies if I offended anybody there. But this gives you kind of a picture of what it looked like in Pearl Harbor. Is anything really big going on here?
No.
No explosions. No, it's just very peaceful. Nothing much happening. All right. Sometimes details are going to show contrast. So let's look at this picture.
Well, what do you mean? What's contrast?
Contrast is talking about like the difference between the light and the dark. So on your television set, you've got part of the picture, going to be dark areas, and other places they're going to be light areas. And we want to be able to tell the difference between them. So let's look at this. The base wakes up that day under an expanse of blue sky dotted with clouds. The sun shines brightly and temperatures are expected to reach into the 80s. The military personnel have hopes of enjoying some of the Hawaiian sunshine before day's end. Plenty of folks back home on the mainland might be deep in snow and cold about this time, but December in Hawaii is almost always a paradise. So again, here we have to think back to what part of the year are we in? We're in December. All right, what kind of weather is Hawaii having right now?
80 degrees.
80 degrees, where was that? Okay, yeah, it's going into the 80s, which seems kind of glorious to us here in Tucson. Oh, I'd love to have it in the 80s. Anything else?
Parka. Yeah, so I'm confused again because
Okay.
it says Hawaiian sunshine, it's in the 80s, that's okay. But folks back in the mainland, but we've never talked about that place. Where's that?
Okay, that is a good point. We'll get to that in just a second. Right now, I'm going to keep with the first bit. Let's just talk more about the weather. So we've got 80s, we've got Hawaiian sunshine. Do we have anything more to talk about with the weather?
Well, there's clouds. It talks about blue sky dotted with clouds.
Okay, so what does that mean to you? Can you put it in real English?
Well, it's kind of like the sky outside right now. It's blue, but there's clouds like here and there all
Okay.
over the place.
All right. So do you consider that to be pleasant weather? I mean, not in Tucson because it's really hot, but you combine that with.
If it could be like that and be in the 80s, that would be nice.
Yeah, okay. So it's nice and warm. It's in the 80s. Okay. What kind of weather is Hawaii having? Nice weather.
Nice.
And here's a picture to sort of make you jealous. This is kind of what they were looking at. Anybody not want to be there? Get help. All right. You were asking, what is the mainland? Okay, well, let's look at the next part. Big clue, folks back home. Where's back home for these people, do you think?
For the people in Hawaii.
In Hawaii, yeah.
Well, isn't their home Hawaii? Because that's where they lived, right?
A lot of them, yeah. So this is where little outside knowledge might be useful. Where is Hawaii?
Isn't it right after California?
Okay. What do you mean by after?
Like you go west, right? And you go down I-10 and you reach Phoenix, then Quartzsite, and then California, and eventually it goes to Los Angeles. And then there's water, but just past the water is Hawaii.
Okay. Is it a lot of water or just a tiny little bit of water? Could you drive across a bridge?
I don't think there's a bridge. I don't know. I've been to the beach in Los Angeles. It seems far. I can't even see Hawaii. Like standing right on the beach, I can't see it.
You stand there at the beach and you look out and all you see is water and then sky. Okay.
Right.
The Pacific Ocean is a giant ocean. It takes up like, half the world's mass, or at least a third. I mean, it is a huge, huge ocean, and right smack in the middle of it is this little island, Hawaii. Now, Hawaii, you've probably heard of people taking Hawaiian on vacations. What country is Hawaii in?
Is it its own country?
Yeah,
It
'cause
was.
I heard I heard somebody talking about the Queen of Hawaii. So
Yeah,
it's got to be its own country.
that was a long time ago.
Well, it's 1941. It is a long time.
Okay, yes, originally, this is an island in the middle of the Pacific, and yes, it was its own place. But one of the things that happened throughout the world is people like to travel and explore from where they started off. And when they see a new place, if they can, they take over it. And the strongest people get to take over the land. It's not nice. You should keep with what is your own land and not take other people's land away. But it's happened throughout world history. So yes, Hawaii was its own country at one time. But eventually, by the time that this story takes place, it is actually part of the United States. It is not a state yet. Right now, Hawaii is. We have 50 states, and Hawaii was the last state to become part of our country. But it is still considered a territory of the United States. It is still United States property. It's out in the middle, so you got this little itty bitty island. It belongs to the United States, and we have a naval base that we put there. Do you think we put on the naval base, did we staff it with just locals?
No.
No. What we do when you join the military is they ship you off to wherever they think you should go. So somebody who joined the Army or the Navy, some of them got sent to Hawaii.
Even if they didn't want to go there?
Yep, well, if you didn't want to go there, you shouldn't have gotten in the military. I mean, join the Navy so you can see the world. That's what they tell you.
But who wouldn't want to go to Hawaii?
I mean, come on, again, you don't want to go there, there's something wrong with you. You know, I mean, yeah, there's sharks, they might bite you, but don't go in the water then, just enjoy the sand. I mean, come on. And we kind of see that here. Some of the people are working that day, but others are wanting to just enjoy their time off if they're off that day. Hawaii seems like a pretty nice place to live. So the people back home, where is that? It is in what we think of as the regular United States. Now, we call that the mainland. So here's an island, and over here is the United States. This is the mainland, Maine, the main part in its land. So this is a little bit of land over here. We call this island, and this is mainland.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Wow.
I actually grew up with this word because I grew up in Florida. I grew up on a tiny island just off the coast of Florida. And when a hurricane came along, well, it was not a place you wanted to stay, so you had to evacuate over to the mainland. The mainland was where real Florida was. We were just on an island. So let's go back to our nice lovely details. We've got the weather in Hawaii. We've got the weather in back home. What's it like for most people back home? Or at least plenty of them.
Yeah, real cold. It's December.
It's December.
Winter.
Snow, it's cold. So we're seeing a contrast in this paragraph. Over in Hawaii, lovely weather. You can go take off your shoes. Back home, they're shoveling snow. You put all these details together, what's our overall picture? Where's this story taking place?
Hawaii, Oahu, Pearl Harbor,
Yeah,
Navy base.
Hawaii. When does it take place?
1942.
1941, but you don't know that from the text. I'm just telling you that. What can you tell me from the text? Do you remember?
It was winter because it's December.
It's December.
And also, I remember them talking about Sunday.
Yes. Weekend. So who's working? Only those who really have to, the smallest amount of people. Sunday, you're supposed to kick off your shoes and relax. What's happening in what we've been reading? Anything big?
Well, there's war going on like other places, but it's not America's war. So here, they're just, except for the people who have to work on the weekend, most people are just like hanging out on the beach.
Right. Okay. So you pulled in the whole picture. This question, what is happening, is kind of a loaded question because there are a lot of different parts to it. In the big picture, there's a lot of wars going on right now, but you get more detailed to this lovely little island over here. We're far removed from it all. This is not our war. We're kind of worried about it, so yeah, we are building up our forces a bit, but right now it's not really our problem. We're just enjoying the lovely beach and maybe having a pina colada or something like that. All right, so what's happening? So we mentioned the war and they're relaxing. Why is this happening? Okay, but these two questions work together. So what's happening? Well, there's a war. We're building up for the war. Why? Because there's a war. They kind of feed each other. Who's involved?
Ben Affleck.
Yeah, who was he? What was his job?
He was like an American soldier or sailor or something, like some kind of military guy.
Yeah, military. So soldiers, sailors, military. Okay, the Navy, the Army, so people who work for the military. What's the general mood right now?
Oh, seems like relaxed and
Relaxed.
happy. And,
Look at the picture here.
yeah.
Does that look very stressful?
Yeah.
Are we expecting anything big to happen? Okay, so one other thing that can happen with details, they can sometimes help you make predictions. So let's put this all together. What do you think is going to happen? And there are some clues here. So people are going about their daily routines. They're not really doing anything special. They're resting. The weather's lovely. But the world's at war. Do you really think it's going to last?
Well, you told me about if there's two gangs fighting and I'm in the middle, and I think if I just stay really quiet and they don't notice me, then yeah, it can just pass over me.
That is very possible, and that's certainly what these people were expecting. But put on your sarcastic hat. Do you think we would be telling you about how lovely and relaxed it was if we weren't ready to just go and knock down your nice little castle that you just built?
Well, I'm thinking of a movie. You know, if you start out a movie with this pleasant little scene, it all looks so fun and beautiful. You're expecting the first explosion to come along.
Exactly.
That first explosion, you know.
It makes me think of a cartoon back when I was a kid where they're showing a meadow and there's like, you know, da na 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 na. And all of a sudden Godzilla stomps through and just eats up all the deer and everything.
Oh, and I know because I already saw the movie.
Yes, so take you back to
Because
that.
they were dating and they were in the car, and that's when all these airplanes came over.
You know, this is a theme you will see. Your mom's in the backyard and she's sort of stretched out on a lounger with a book, you know, and a drink. She's enjoying herself. Isn't that the perfect opportunity to throw a water balloon at her? When you get into reading more, a lot of the English teachers love to talk about something called foreshadowing. Shadow, you know, you got nice, sunny, everything's nice. We're going to throw a shadow on it. For means in the future. So we're kind of showing it's really nice now, but we're hinting something's going to happen.
It's too good to last.
Exactly. It is too good to last.
And there's a story. We got to tell a story here.
Exactly. I'm not going to waste your time saying, and they went on enjoying their Mai Tais for the rest of their lives. All right, let's go on. So let's practice this a little bit more.
Out of the blue. On this day, the necessary staff of sailors, soldiers, mechanics, nurses, and service people are at work bright and early, doing their duty for the country they serve. Although operating in smaller numbers than on a typical weekday, there is still a rhythm to their work, as befits any military station. Everyone can be counted on to do what he or she is tasked to do, exactly when tasked to do it. In the military, you can rely on people and systems operating as expected. It's fundamental and essential. The men and women at Pearl Harbor certainly know this to be true.
Okay, there's a whole lot in here. It's a lot of words to get to just one tiny little thought. Let's try to get to that thought. And this leads into the next lesson. We want to sum up this one paragraph into one thing. What would that be? Well, let me ask you, first of all, out of the blue, what does that mean to you? Have you heard that phrase?
So I've heard somebody say it, but I don't know what that.
I mean, I was just minding my own business, and then out of the blue, my boss started shouting at me.
So I always think blue means water, but it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so this takes us into something, this is called figurative language, so we don't mean it like really out of the blue, although actually here, we kind of can. This is a play on words. So first, let's just go back to the sentence I just said. I was minding my own business, and out of the blue, my boss started shouting at me. Was I expecting my boss to shout at me, or was that unexpected?
Seems like it's unexpected.
Unexpected. I was minding my own business. That's telling you you weren't expecting for the boss to start shouting at me. So out of the blue, it started happening. I think where this term comes from is like, out of the clear blue sky, there came a lightning bolt. There were no clouds. Well, this lightning bolt happened.
So blue is sky, not water?
In general, it means we had a clear sky and I got struck by lightning. Totally unexpected. All right, now let's go through this paragraph, and there's a whole lot of details all driving at one tiny little point. There's just one thing that we have to get out of this paragraph. What is it that everyone at Pearl Harbor knows to be true? So blah, blah, blah. So a whole bunch of staff of a whole bunch of people. Yeah, I don't really care who they are. Lots of people. They're at work bright and early doing their duty. Okay. They're operating in smaller numbers than a typical weekday. You know, it's Sunday, so there are fewer of them. There's still a rhythm to their work, as befits any military station. Okay, I'm not really sure what befits means, but you know what? I think I can probably skip that word. You do not have to know every single word in order to get the point of the story. There's still a rhythm to their work, and it fits any military station. At a military station, there's going to be a rhythm. Everyone can be counted on to do whatever they're asked to do exactly when they are told to do it. In the military, you can rely on people and systems operating as expected. It's fundamental and essential. The men and women at Pearl Harbor certainly knows to be true. So I keep harping back to this, what is know this to be true? The reason is because I kind of lost track of it. Wait, what is it they know to be true? I had to read this paragraph several times. And we come back to this bit. So what does the this refer to? It's going to be something probably pretty close to the sentence. In the military, you can rely on things to happen the way they are supposed to happen.
So knowing that people will do their job, basically.
Yes. What is it they know to be true? Everything on a military base runs like clockwork. It has a routine, it's reliable, it's predictable, nothing unexpected happens. So this is in my own words. This is not something that you would have to put. If I asked, what do they know to be true? You would not have to write what I just wrote. This is how I would say it. You might say it in different ways. Okay, another question. So everything runs the way it's supposed to. What phrases from the passage support this? Can you find details?
Well, I think just the thing you underlined, you can rely on people
Okay.
and systems.
Okay. Are there any other details in the passage that contribute or that help make that point?
Well, the rhythm is something that happens
Okay.
regularly.
So there's a rhythm to their work. Good. Anything else?
Well, I see operating in smaller numbers. So it's smaller numbers, but they're still operating, doing whatever they're supposed to do at that time. There's
Okay.
stuff that always needs to be done.
So the smaller numbers, that tells us that it's a little bit less than normal. But then we've got this, well, although. So even though that's happening, there's still this rhythm to the work. And then, you know, everyone can be counted on to do what they're supposed to do. So we've got all these little details, and it's all pointing to nothing unexpected happens in the military.
Everything's under control.
Everything's under control, right. which takes me to a military phrase, no battle plan withstands contact with the enemy. So I'm not sure that this is really true, that everything happens the way it's supposed to. But this writer certainly thinks that's the way it's supposed to happen. All right, except on this day, December 7th, 1941, it isn't. Here's where I ran into a problem. Well, I was reading this page. I'm just reading blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. And then I get to except on this day. Whoa. Okay, that gets my attention. It isn't. Wait, what isn't? What isn't what?
Well, it seems like it's saying it isn't a day.
Yeah. And does that make sense? It isn't, except on this day.
It isn't.
It isn't that.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's not making right. So when it doesn't make any sense to you, you have to stop and think, well, can I think of any other possibilities? A lot of times when you're reading, you see these two dashes here. That's telling this bit is just an interrupter. We could take that out and still have a sentence. Except on this day, it isn't. Well, what isn't? Well, you're going to have to go back to that previous passage and reread it, and this time understand and don't tune it out. I had to do this several times. What isn't? What isn't? It isn't true. What isn't true? That you can rely on people to do what they're supposed to do. Okay? So these paragraphs, they do connect with each other. That is something to think about while you are reading. Paragraphs, if they're in the same passage, they are going to connect to each other. They're not random facts, that one leads to the other. So what do we have? We have everybody knows that in the military, things happen according to a plan. It's true, except on this day. And what day is it? It's December 7th. And now we are finally giving you the year, 1941, a day which will live in infamy.
Why'd you say that?
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. I ask Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
What happens? An unexpected sound breaks through the familiar clangs and hums of the station. It is a sound of engines in the air coming in fast and low. The engines grow louder and louder until, dropping from the blue, a swarm of Japanese fighters thunders across the sky, and without warning to the people of Oahu, rain destruction on Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, it's just what happened in the movie I was telling you about.
Yes. And here we have, they are dropping from the blue. What is the blue here? Is that the ocean? If they're planes?
No, that's the sky.
That's definitely the sky. So this was literally out of the blue. Nice blue sky. And so picturing this, it's quiet, and then suddenly we've got this sound that is gradually coming in, this hum, sound of airplanes coming in. They grow louder, and then suddenly destruction comes.
Suddenly they're thundering across the sky.
Yeah, so yes, so it starts off pretty small, and suddenly it's thundering. Thunder is usually loud, and then suddenly it's raining destruction. So what's the first thing that catches people's attention this morning? Sound of engines, just this humming.
What does that mean, raining destruction?
We know what raining is, right? All right, so it is just destruction coming down like rain.
Like little raindrops were like little bombs or little pieces of
You can think of it that way, yes. It's coming from above, coming down on you.
Those are the airplanes?
These are the Japanese airplanes.
So the red circle, is that like the target where you're supposed to shoot?
I always wondered about that. American airplanes also had a big circle.
Yes.
Great target, aim right there, you got them. This comes from the Japanese flag. it's a big red circle in their flag, and it's because from where they are located, they get a great view of the rising sun. So I'm going to give you a little clip just to show you what it might have looked like for them. This is a clip from that movie you were talking about.
Oh, cool.
Okay. I'll confess, I have not actually watched this movie. I hear that it is not very historically accurate, but this particular scene, I think, describes exactly what these people are expecting. All right, so this is a clip that shows a little bit of what it was like. Now, this clip starts off showing it from the perspective of the Japanese. So here you see Pearl Harbor, and what's going on here? Well, any activity in Pearl Harbor?
No, not much.
Not much. So come all these airplanes, and you notice there is that red circle here. Everybody's just going about their day, and suddenly dropped a water balloon on Mom. Yikes. did you think?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I saw that movie, but that's just how I remember it.
Okay. So this is a Jerry Bruckheimer, Michael Bay movie. You know, those movies are known for explosions. What is, to me, remarkable is that normally I think Michael Bay fiction, just action movie, it's not true, but this really happened. Within a matter of minutes, paradise turned into hell. To summarize, when you are reading, questions are really key to understanding. When you're reading something and you want to make sure you understood the text, ask yourself if you can answer what we call the WH questions, meaning the questions that start with WH. So what happened? When, where, who's involved, why? And then how, we're missing the W, but you get the point.
It's got a W at the end.
Yes, it does. There we go, you saved it. So look for the answers to these questions. They aren't always in the text, but you should be asking them and see if you can find the answers to them. You may have to read the text again until these questions or the answers to the questions are clear to you. Now, the real test of whether you are following the text is when you start to answer your own questions. To me, what we just read, and especially what we just saw, that kind of brings it to life, but questions that you might have: how on earth did this happen? What brought it up? You know, why did the Japanese attack? Why wasn't the US expecting it? Did the attack do any serious damage? And, you know, was anybody killed? Well, clearly. And wow, what happened afterwards? How did the US react? Those are two big things that are studied with this event. What caused it? What happened afterwards?
Now it's time to try this on your own. Get out your TABE Mastery Level e-reading book and complete pages 40 through 45. This will give you practice on the reading skills that we've worked through today. It will give you a number of passages to read and will ask you questions about them. Feel free to write the answers in the book, or you can write them on a separate sheet of paper if you're like me and you feel guilty writing in books. Also, and this is very important, to prove that you watched this entire video, you need to answer this control question. What was it that caught everyone's attention on that fateful Sunday morning? Rewind the video to find the answer if you need to. Somewhere on your work that you'll submit, or on a blank sheet of paper if you prefer, write control question and then the answer. You must submit the control question answer to prove that you watched the video, or you won't get time credit for it. To receive time credit for this class session, you also need to turn in your work from this book. You can either hand it in personally, or you can take a picture of your work and email the photos to pcaplearnlabs@sc.pima.gov. If you turn in your work, you'll receive 2.5 hours of time credit, 1 hour for watching the video and 1.5 hours for the written work. You have to turn in your work in order to get the time credit. And that's it for now. See you next time.
Dismiss.